everyone, welcome back. Big E here. This is my third video in the three-part series, How to Get an International School Teaching Job. Now, this is the tips for getting an international school teaching job. If you watched the first two videos, you saw what types of international schools are out there and also the types of recruiting agencies and the timeline. Tip number one, be flexible about where you want to teach. This is the most important going in, especially as a first-time international teacher. You're not going to necessarily have a lot of options going in. A lot of teachers go in with this dream of teaching in Europe straight away. But in order to be considered for a lot of schools in Europe, you have to have at least 6 years international school teaching experience. And the pay in Europe is not as high, especially compared to the cost of living, when you compare to the jobs available in Southeast Asia or the Middle East. If you're willing to go to any country, then you're going to have a lot more options and you're going to have a lot more jobs available to you. This relates really nicely to tip number two, which is have fun with your search. It's the best geography lesson you'll ever get. We travel to different places. When we go on trips to other countries, one of the things that we like to imagine is what would it be like to live in this country? So we sit there on the beach, or we are in our hotel room, or we sit in a cafe in the corner, and we just imagine to ourselves, what if I lived here? What would my life be like? What things would I experience? This is what I've been able to do for the past 6 months in front of my computer. As I look at what would it be like to live in Zimbabwe? What would it be like to live in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania? What about Saudi Arabia? What about China? What if I lived in Hong Kong? What about Shanghai? All these areas that I researched, imagined myself in. There are many countries and cities that I had not even considered starting this process. Because of this job search, I've been able to research a lot of countries in the developed and developing world, and even found a few future vacation spots that I would like to visit. In this process, you'll find some places that might not suit you. I'll give you an example. I was looking at an international school in the city of Colombo in Sri Lanka. The country's beautiful. There's so much to see. It would be so awesome to live there. But then I found out that most people cannot use air conditioners because the cost of electricity is so high, even for foreigners. For me, that's a deal breaker. I can handle hot weather sometimes, but not being able to run the air conditioner at night when I'm sleeping, that's a deal breaker for me. Tip number three, aim high at first, slowly lower your standards. At the beginning of this process, the jobs that come out in October, November, and December, it would be foolish for you to accept a job at a school that's below your standards, when maybe later on in the process, you could land a job at a better school. At the same time, schools would be foolish to hire teachers below their standards if there's lots of other teachers coming in the future. So both applicants and schools keep their standards very high. As time goes on, those standards lower. Teachers, applicants will get a little bit scared. Will I be able to find a job? And start to lower the standards. Along this process, the school will find a teacher that suits them, and the teacher will find a school that suits them as well. Tip number four, organize your applications. I applied to something like 80 schools, and a lot of these schools are not schools that were my first choice, and they were schools that would be options to me only maybe in March or April, but I still sent my applications and I wanted to track. I use an Excel spreadsheet that had the school, what I sent them, and their reply, and the dates for everything. It helped me keep track of things because there are so many schools in the similar cities, so many of the names are similar, and you don't want to forget who you sent things to or overlook a school because you thought you had already sent something to them. Tip number five, know the lingo. In the international school world, there's going to be lots of new terminology, lots of curriculum terms, IB, MYP, A-levels, O-levels. Do your research on the curriculum that you're applying to. Make sure you understand the school, the curriculum, the system, everything. Especially when you go into the job interview, you will look like a much more qualified candidate and actually be a much more qualified candidate because you spent the time to research what the school teaches, how that's implemented in the classroom, and the philosophy of the school. And the last tip, tip number six, take any interview you're offered. This may seem desperate at first, but it's not. Interviews take practice, and especially interviews that happen over Skype, and they can be a nerve-wracking thing. You want to make sure that you're presenting your best self at all times. I took 2 interviews before I accepted a job that I considered practice interviews. The schools were not at the top of my list, and I'm not sure that I would have accepted if I was offered a job. But along the way, I got a feel for what type of questions are asked, and after each interview, I sent the person I was interviewing a request. Could you give me some tips? Could you tell me what I could have done better in future interviews? I think doing these practice interviews helped me be a lot less nervous for my regular interview and also be able to present myself in a more accurate way when it came to an interview that I really did care about. All right, I hope these tips help you in your job search. If you have any questions, please ask them below. Anything I didn't cover, hey, enjoy the adventure that comes with looking for a job overseas. It is such a fun experience. You're gonna learn so much about yourself, about other countries, other cultures, and enjoy the emotions and the anticipation and the anxiety that comes along with it. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.
I like